Howdy folks, my name's Christian and welcome to Bullish on Farming. Today is November 30th, last day in November. Just brought out some fresh bedding for the girls here. These are our last two gilts on the farm and they go off in about a week's time. And we're in our last paddock of our 6 paddock forest raised pork system. And that's 1, 2, 3 back, 4, 5, 6 that we're in now. And this had been stockpiled for less than, well, sorry, I'm saying more than 70 days. So it was probably around 80 days. And we let the last two girls in to this clean. So it was a lot because we started with 8 pegs. And you can see that's still about 2 weeks in. There's some green for the girls to play with. But boy, have they really had a time in this pig paradise, what it's turned into with these wet conditions. We have been getting cold weather, but it's been coming up during the days up to even 5, 7 degrees. Cold nights going down to -1, -5 with wind chill. And so these girls are over 250 pounds. I mean, the last girl we sent off a month ago, not the last girl, but it was a month ago, and she was 265. So it's been a whole month that these girls have been on the farm. I wouldn't be surprised if they're 280, both of them. And we've been feeding them on hog grower and fermented scratch grain. And when things were getting freezing cold, we put water in the other bucket because just with 2 girls now, 1 bucket suffices. But now that things are above 0, those nipples are thawed out and that stock tub's working again. And yeah, we got the cattle back in the barnyard, and I opened up a bush section, which now gives them the bush that wraps around. I've talked about it in previous videos. And actually behind this bush, it's about 1.5 acres for our mom group. And that just gives them some space to walk around. It was about a day and a half worth of feed for the girls. And they're still getting 2 bales a day in those ring feeders. But just so they have somewhere to go to clean their hooves and walk through and, you know, spontaneously engage with their environment, having that bush section for them to go walk through is great, because otherwise they're just confined in a setting, you know, with their droppings and eating very close to it. And of course we scrape something like that. I scraped the paddock yesterday with the tractor, which just means cleaning the manure. And we have a manure pile over in the corner. And that's just the way of the game with these winter paddock settings. Those of you in Canada, northern states, or climates similar to it are probably familiar with this. Okay, we're in mud season. And although it would be great to be keeping the cattle on the land, I'm always looking to do that. That north field that we can lay up onto, you know, it's not ready for the cattle. We're not getting freezing temperatures at night, and our daytime temperatures are too high. So, you know, tonight we're getting down to -5 with wind chill, but -1 core temperature. So that's barely enough to even freeze over for the cattle tomorrow morning. What we need is a couple mornings of freezing temperatures at night with daytime not coming over 0. And then we can start putting the cattle on that field, which I have a pulley braid sectioned off for the girls that keeps them closest to this edge of the field. And the reason for that is because it gets pretty much no solar sun exposure. And so with a couple of nights of freezing temperatures, that ground stays frozen, because the solar heat, surface heat of feeling the sun is what will melt things quicker than anything. And I found that that top section of the field stays nice and firm. So we're lucky enough to have something like that, and that's what you want to be looking out for on your farm. Or if you're planning to build a barn, how you want to position your barn close to fields that can be sacrificial fields, or sections that you can utilize in a certain way, especially during the winter, because once your ground freezes over, when it comes to cattle, you have an opportunity to put your animals on the land. And last year we did an intensive bale grazing program. The girls were on there from January until 2nd week in March. And we bale grazed something like 170 bales out in the fields. And the land took it great because the ground was frozen while the animals were on it. And most of the time there was about 2 feet of snow. So here in Canada, we can do that. But you can see we've gotten about 1.5 inches of rain today. We're getting pooling up over here, okay? And this is nothing to brag about, but I guess showing the good, bad, and the ugly. You know, we run a great mob grazing program, and we have a good amount of grazing acres with a 70-day rest period with mobbing our group. But we're not there yet with our pasture quality to stockpile fields that will be ready to accommodate our animals with that carbon armor coverage that you look for when you're grazing through the wet months like this, okay? And so we're working towards getting there. We have to include more grazing acres, and we definitely don't want to be doing that with our hay fields at this time. We include hay fields when we don't anticipate second cut, so we can include those on our second and third lap on our farm with our animals during the drought, dry-like months, where, you know, still getting 70 days of rest, those hay fields are ready to be grazed with a good rotation program, 24-hour paddocks, keeping the cattle moving and not mobbing areas too hard that'll make it go rank. Okay, especially not in your hay fields. That's how we treat our pastures as well. And so back to the pigs, you know, some people might say, aren't you worried about them being cold? You know, -10, that's pretty cold. They don't have coats like other animals. And that's true, but they have a lot of fat and lard. And so in my experience, they've been fine. Sure, wet and cold, it's a little bit more of a trade-off. But usually when things get cold enough, they're not so wet anymore because everything freezes up. But like I say, these girls are gone in a week. And, you know, we're at the tail end of their life cycle, not the beginning. So I truly do believe that they're okay. And we're not getting into true Canadian winter until they're gone after this farm. So I would like to finish our pork a little earlier next year. We did keep some girls around. I think these girls are around 8 months, 7.5 months, maybe close to 8. Let's see, let's see here quickly. We got these girls in May, so May, June, July, August, September, October, November. End of this month, they'll be 7 months. And these girls are probably 280 pounds. First girls we sent off, the first girl we sent off was 5.5 months at 240. And the second girl and third girl we sent off were at 250. And then we sent off girls a little heavier. And now these girls I anticipate 280. And we'll see. Stay posted for that. But yeah, these girls, you know, loving their feed. Got plenty of water, that's for sure. Got plenty of play. You can see the wallows they've made over there. You know, and we stay away from that as much as possible by not creating wallows during the year. But at this time, folks, what can you do? And we got, you know, lower stock density in here now, so we'd rather it now than before. But bringing out dry bedding, I think, is very important, because although these animals are chubby, you got to be giving them dry bedding, especially if you've just gotten 1.5 inches of rain and it's cold, okay, like close to 0. Even 2 or 3 degrees when it's cold, folks. Just dry bedding, it makes a world of a difference. And you can see these cows, they're out for a nature walk. Keeping that poly braid out there is my insurance policy from them wanting to play with this tensile wire. You know, keeping a nice hot line, keeps the calves in check. And glad they're using it out there. Although, of course, you know, cattle, they're where the food's at. And that's where they're spending their time right now. So this is the game we're playing. But I'm praying, you know, in a week, we're going to be getting the freezing temperatures we're looking for. Like I said, a couple of nights of freezing temperatures, followed by days with not above 0. We can be getting cattle on our field at a higher edge of this field, which gets very little sun and stays frozen over. And bale graze that and keep the cattle on the land. And give this barnyard a rest, because we'll be approaching 3 weeks in another week's time, and that 21-day mark is the general benchmark, I think it was Saladin, Joel Saladin, who said, you know, 21 days, get your animals moving, no matter what, because you're inviting the bacteria that has to do with, you know, infection, rot, and that type of stuff at that gestation period. And I get it, sometimes your cattle have to stay where they are, but being mindful of these things, you can create new opportunities and options in the future by re-strategizing and managing what you're working with. So, you know, well, stay posted, because I know there's a lot of folks dealing with these wet months and they're not fun. But this is what we got going on now, and we got a plan. So I'd like to say thanks for stopping by, folks. God bless you all. We'll see you on the next one.